Communist Chinese hackers are being accused of spying on the Vatican, breaking into the Holy See's computer networks.
Recent rumors from within Vatican City have sent shockwaves through the Catholic world, as Pope Francis reportedly prepared to break centuries of tradition by revealing his thoughts on succession. Devastating news arrived that threatened to unravel the very fabric of the Church's leadership. What could be so severe that it would shake the foundations of the world's oldest continuing institution? From financial secrets to security breaches, this crisis arrives at a pivotal moment for the Catholic Church. The story begins with an announcement that would change everything: the devastating news. The Catholic Church has weathered many storms in its 2,000-year history, but few moments have been as dramatic as what unfolded a few weeks ago. Pope Francis, known for breaking traditional barriers since his election in 2013, was about to make an announcement that would shake the foundations of papal succession. For centuries, popes have maintained strict silence about their potential successors, leaving the choice entirely to the College of Cardinals after their death or resignation. Francis, however, had other plans. On what seemed like an ordinary Wednesday morning, with St. Peter's Square filled with thousands of faithful attending the weekly papal audience, Francis surprised everyone by expressing his intention to openly discuss the future of the papacy. The announcement sent immediate ripples through the Vatican's ancient corridors. Cardinals, who had gathered for a routine consistory meeting, found themselves facing an unprecedented situation. But it wasn't Francis's surprising openness about succession that would ultimately rock the Vatican. Just hours after his announcement, as the global media scrambled to report on this historical break from tradition, devastating news reached the Pope's private chambers. Vatican security officials, conducting a routine system audit, had discovered something that would threaten not just the succession plans, but the very stability of the Holy See. The timing couldn't have been worse. Francis had been carefully laying the groundwork for months, subtly preparing the Church for progressive changes in how papal transitions would be handled. His vision included greater transparency in the selection process and more direct involvement from bishops representing the Global South, where Catholic numbers continue to grow rapidly. Some cardinals had privately expressed support for this modernization, seeing it as necessary for the Church's survival in an increasingly secular world. What made this moment particularly crucial was the state of the Catholic Church in 2024. With 1.3 billion followers worldwide and growing challenges in addressing modern social issues, the stakes for a smooth transition of power had never been higher. Francis, at 88 years old, had been focusing on ensuring his legacy of reform would continue through his successor. But the discovery made by Vatican security would change everything. What started as a standard systems check revealed irregularities that pointed to something far more sinister. Initial reports suggested a breach that went beyond mere cybersecurity concerns. This was something that struck at the heart of the Vatican's most closely guarded operations. As news of the discovery spread through the Vatican's inner circles, faces grew pale and urgent meetings were convened behind closed doors. The gravity of the situation became apparent when Francis abruptly canceled his scheduled appearances for the next 3 days, something he had done only twice before during his entire papacy. Vatican observers noted unusual activity around the Apostolic Palace, with senior cardinals arriving for emergency consultations late into the night. The Vatican Bank, officially known as the Institute for Religious Works, suddenly announced a temporary freeze on certain transaction categories, citing technical updates. As the faithful gathered in St. Peter's Square in the days following, many noticed the increased presence of the Swiss Guard and a tangible tension in the air. The Vatican's press office, usually quick to provide statements, maintained an uncomfortable silence that only fueled speculation. What could be so serious that it would force Pope Francis to put his groundbreaking succession plans on hold? The answer would emerge gradually over the next few days, revealing a web of connections that would make even the most seasoned Vatican observers gasp. But before we uncover the shocking truth that threatened to unravel centuries of Vatican tradition, we must first understand the complex financial system at the heart of the Holy See. The Vatican's financial web. The Vatican Bank isn't your typical financial institution. Housed in a converted medieval tower, this mysterious organization manages assets worth over 800 billion euros, serving thousands of account holders. But you can't simply walk in and open an account. For centuries, this bank has operated under unique rules. answering only to a select committee of cardinals and ultimately the Pope himself. Recently, investigators uncovered a series of suspicious transactions that sent tremors through the Holy See's financial foundation. A complex network of offshore accounts had been processing unusually large transfers, all carefully disguised as charitable donations for global missionary work. These transactions, some dating back 3 years, formed a pattern that pointed to something far more concerning than simple accounting irregularities. At the center of this web lay a series of investments in emerging technology companies, specifically firms developing artificial intelligence systems for financial markets. While the church had been publicly embracing technological advancement, these particular investments raised red flags. The companies, though seemingly legitimate, were found to be shells, their ownership traced through a labyrinth of holding companies, leading to several prominent figures within the Vatican's own financial administration. The scale was staggering. Nearly 3 billion euros had been channeled through these companies over 36 months. But it wasn't just the amount that alarmed investigators. The timing of these investments coincided perfectly with major policy decisions within the church, suggesting something far more sinister: the possibility of insider trading based on advanced knowledge of Vatican announcements that could influence global markets. What made this discovery particularly damaging was its connection to recent church initiatives. Under Francis's leadership, the Vatican had launched ambitious programs to support sustainable development in developing nations. These programs, praised worldwide for their innovative approach to combining faith with social progress, had been the cornerstone of the church's modernization efforts. Now, evidence suggested that some of these very initiatives may have been used as covers for financial manipulation. The investigation revealed an intricate system of encrypted communications between certain Vatican officials and external financial advisors. These communications, discovered during the routine security audit, showed detailed discussions about market movements that would follow specific church announcements. More disturbing still, several of these discussions mentioned succession planning and transition opportunities, phrases that took on new meaning in light of Francis's recent announcement about naming his successor. As investigators dug deeper, they discovered something even more troubling. Some of the largest transactions had been authorized using security credentials belonging to individuals who would have significant influence in any papal succession process. The implications were clear. Someone had been positioning themselves financially for a change in church leadership, using insider information and Vatican resources to do so. The revelation sent shockwaves through the Vatican's Financial Oversight Committee. Emergency meetings were convened, bringing together the top financial experts from within the church hierarchy. The Secretariat for the Economy, created by Francis to modernize church finances, found itself facing its greatest challenge yet. How could they address this crisis without undermining the faith of millions in the church's ability to manage its resources ethically? As investigators continued to unravel this financial web, attention turned to a series of recent high-level appointments within the Vatican's financial administration. Several key positions had been filled by individuals with extensive backgrounds in international banking, appointments that had been praised at the time as steps toward modernization. Now these same appointments were being scrutinized with new eyes. But as the financial investigation intensified, something even more concerning emerged: evidence of sophisticated cyber intrusions into the Vatican's most secure networks. These weren't simple hacking attempts. They showed signs of insider knowledge and access to highly restricted systems. Could there be a connection between these digital breaches and the financial irregularities? And more importantly, who within the Vatican's own ranks might be involved in this unprecedented security crisis? The breach that changed everything. In an age where even the most sacred institutions must adapt to digital reality, the Vatican's cybersecurity team made a chilling discovery. Hidden deep within the Vatican's secure servers, they found sophisticated malware that had been quietly collecting data for months. This wasn't just any security breach. The malware showed signs of being custom-built specifically to navigate the Vatican's unique digital architecture. What made this discovery particularly alarming was the malware's focus. Instead of targeting financial records or personal data, it had been systematically gathering information from the Apostolic Archives digitization project. This massive undertaking, started in 2023, aimed to preserve centuries of historical documents in digital format. But someone had been particularly interested in files relating to previous papal transitions, and more specifically, documents detailing procedures for handling contested successions. The breach extended beyond just historical documents. The hackers had gained access to the Vatican's secure communication system, known internally as the Holy See Information Network. This system, used exclusively by the highest-ranking church officials, carried sensitive discussions about everything from diplomatic missions to internal church governance. The infiltrators had been silently monitoring these communications, paying special attention to discussions about modernizing church leadership structures. Even more concerning was the discovery of sophisticated surveillance software installed on key terminals throughout Vatican City. This software had been accessing the private schedules and communications of several cardinals who were considered potential papal candidates. The level of access suggested something unprecedented. Someone with intimate knowledge of the Vatican's security protocols had been orchestrating this operation from within. The technical sophistication of the breach pointed to state-level capabilities, but certain aspects didn't fit that profile. The attackers had detailed knowledge of internal church procedures that wouldn't be available to outside intelligence agencies. They understood the significance of specific historical documents that only church scholars would recognize. Most tellingly, they knew exactly when and where to look for sensitive discussions about succession planning. Vatican cybersecurity experts found evidence that the infiltrators had created a shadow network within the Holy See systems. This parallel network had been quietly archiving copies of specific communications, particularly those related to Francis's plans for choosing his successor. The selection of targeted data suggested the perpetrators were not just gathering intelligence, they were building a detailed picture of the power dynamics within the church's highest levels. As investigators traced the digital footprints, they uncovered an elaborate system of encrypted channels leading to servers in multiple countries. These channels had been transmitting data to secure locations where it was being analyzed and cataloged. The operation showed signs of professional intelligence gathering, but with a crucial difference. The analysts behind it understood the nuances of church politics and theological implications in ways that suggested intimate insider knowledge. The timing of certain data extractions aligned perfectly with crucial meetings and decisions within the Vatican. When Francis had first begun hinting at his plans for succession, there was a spike in surveillance activity. When certain cardinals were quietly consulted about potential reforms to the succession process, their communications were specifically targeted. This wasn't random cyber espionage. This was a carefully orchestrated operation designed to monitor and potentially influence the future of the Catholic Church. Perhaps most disturbing was the discovery of sophisticated analysis software running on the shadow network. This software wasn't just collecting data, it was using artificial intelligence to predict potential outcomes of different succession scenarios. The algorithms were processing centuries of church history alongside current political alignments, creating detailed projections of how different papal candidates might influence church doctrine and governance. The breach had another, more immediate implication. The same systems that had been compromised also contained sensitive diplomatic communications between the Vatican and world leaders. The Church's unique position as both a religious institution and a sovereign state meant these communications often dealt with delicate international situations. As investigators dug deeper into the extent of the breach, a troubling question emerged. Was this elaborate cyber operation part of a larger conspiracy involving powerful forces, both inside and outside the Church? And if so, what role did certain influential cardinals play in this unprecedented attempt to shape the future of Catholic leadership? The cardinals respond. As news of the financial irregularities and security breach rippled through the College of Cardinals, an unprecedented division emerged within the Church's highest ranks. According to insiders, the sacred halls of the Vatican witnessed tense confrontations between cardinals who had never publicly disagreed before. Cardinal Giuseppe Romano, known for his diplomatic skills in navigating church politics, found himself at the center of a storm when he called for an emergency consistory to address the crisis. What made this moment particularly significant was the emergence of three distinct factions within the College of Cardinals. The traditionalists, led by Cardinal Thomas Bennett from England, argued for a complete suspension of any succession discussions until the security breach was fully contained. The progressives, spearheaded by Cardinal Miguel Santos from Brazil, pushed for even greater transparency, suggesting that the crisis offered an opportunity for radical reform of church governance. But it was the emergence of a third group, the pragmatists, led by Cardinal Chen Wei from Hong Kong, that would reshape the dynamics of this internal struggle. The pragmatists proposed something revolutionary, a complete overhaul of how the church handles sensitive information and decision-making. Their proposal included creating an independent oversight committee composed of both religious and lay experts, something never before considered in church history. This suggestion sent shockwaves through Vatican City as it challenged the traditional power structure that had existed for centuries. Behind closed doors, heated debates erupted over the role of regional churches in papal succession. African cardinals, representing the fastest-growing Catholic populations, demanded greater influence in the process. Cardinal Emmanuel Okonkwo from Nigeria presented evidence showing how the current crisis disproportionately affected developing nations' Catholic communities, where church-sponsored development projects had been compromised by the financial scandal. The situation became even more complex when Cardinal Santos revealed that several senior Vatican officials had approached him with concerns about irregular meetings happening in the months before the crisis. These meetings, held in locations outside Vatican City, had involved certain cardinals and external consultants with expertise in both international finance and cybersecurity. The timing and secrecy of these meetings raised troubling questions about possible coordination between different aspects of the crisis. What truly set this cardinal response apart from previous church crises was the role of social media. Despite the Vatican's traditional preference for privacy, several younger cardinals began using secure social platforms to communicate directly with their dioceses about the situation. Cardinal James Murray from Australia gained particular attention for his series of carefully worded statements that highlighted the need for structural reform without compromising church doctrine. The divide between cardinals became most apparent during a crucial meeting in the Apostolic Palace. Cardinal Bennett presented evidence suggesting that the security breach may have been an inside job, orchestrated by those seeking to influence the succession process. This revelation led to an intense debate about trust and loyalty within the church's highest ranks. For the first time in modern church history, cardinals openly questioned whether they could trust their colleagues with sensitive information. As the crisis deepened, attention turned to the role of the Vatican's diplomatic corps. Cardinal Stefan Kovac from Croatia, drawing on his experience as a former Vatican diplomat, highlighted how the breach had compromised sensitive negotiations with several world governments. He revealed that certain diplomatic channels, particularly those dealing with humanitarian initiatives in conflict zones, had been temporarily suspended due to security concerns. The cardinals' response to the crisis also revealed generational divisions within the church leadership. Younger cardinals, many appointed by Francis, pushed for embracing technological solutions and modern governance practices. Older cardinals, drawing on their experience of previous church crises, advocated for a more cautious approach. This generational divide added another layer of complexity to an already multifaceted crisis. As these internal debates intensified, a new challenge emerged that would force the cardinals to look beyond their internal divisions. Reports began surfacing of widespread concern among the global Catholic community, with many faithful questioning the Church's ability to navigate modern challenges. How would the Church leadership address this crisis of confidence among its 1.3 billion followers? And what role would public opinion play in shaping the Vatican's response to this unprecedented situation? Global Catholic response. As the crisis unfolded within Vatican City, an unprecedented wave of responses emerged from Catholic communities worldwide. In Asia, where Catholicism had seen remarkable growth over the past decade, church attendance saw its first significant decline in 15 years. Local parishes from Manila to Seoul reported increasing questions from parishioners about the security of their charitable donations. In Japan, where Catholics represent a small but influential minority, several prominent Catholic business leaders suspended their annual contributions to Vatican-led initiatives. Catholic universities became unexpected centers of activism. At Georgetown University, theology professors organized a symposium addressing the intersection of faith and institutional transparency. The conference, attended by religious scholars from 23 countries, produced a comprehensive report calling for structural reforms in church governance. Similar initiatives emerged at Catholic institutions across Europe, with the University of Louvain in Belgium establishing a permanent research center dedicated to church modernization studies. Africa's Catholic community, representing 300 million faithful, responded with remarkable resilience. Church attendance actually increased in many regions, with local priests reporting that congregations were gathering more frequently for prayer sessions focused on church unity. However, several prominent African Catholic organizations suspended their participation in Vatican-led development projects until new oversight measures could be implemented. In Uganda, Catholic youth organizations launched a digital campaign called Faith Forward, advocating for greater African representation in church leadership. Latin American Catholics, historically among the most devoted, organized peaceful vigils outside cathedrals in 12 major cities. In Brazil, where nearly 60% of the population identifies as Catholic, religious leaders launched a grassroots movement called Renew the Faith, focusing on maintaining local church communities while pushing for Vatican reform. The movement gained particular strength in rural areas, where local parishes began implementing their own transparency measures for charitable activities. European Catholics demonstrated the most diverse range of responses. In traditionally Catholic countries like Poland and Ireland, conservative groups rallied in support of traditional church structures. Meanwhile, in France and Germany, Catholic reform movements gained unprecedented momentum, with some parishes establishing lay advisory councils to oversee local church finances. Spanish Catholic media outlets played a crucial role, launching investigative reports into church financial practices that gained international attention. North American responses reflected the region's technological focus. Catholic tech professionals in Silicon Valley formed a volunteer group offering cybersecurity expertise to local dioceses. Canadian Catholic organizations pioneered a blockchain-based donation tracking system, which would later catch the Vatican's attention as a potential model for reform. But with all of these measures in place, what would the future of the Vatican look like? The future of papal succession. Over the past year, the Vatican found itself implementing unprecedented changes. A new Office of Financial and Digital Security was established, staffed by both religious and lay experts. The Swiss Guard, traditionally focused on physical security, expanded its role to include a specialized cybersecurity unit trained by leading international experts in digital protection. The Vatican Bank underwent its most significant restructuring since 1981. New transparency protocols were implemented, requiring multiple levels of verification for any transactions above 1 million euros. External auditors were granted unprecedented access to review church financial records, though certain historical archives remained restricted. A new digital tracking system, inspired by the Canadian model, was implemented to monitor all international financial transactions. The Church's diplomatic corps underwent substantial modernization. New protocols were established for sensitive communications, with enhanced encryption systems protecting diplomatic exchanges. Perhaps most significantly, Pope Francis announced reforms to the papal succession process itself. While maintaining the sacred nature of the conclave, new guidelines required potential papal candidates to undergo thorough financial and background screenings. A council of advisors, including lay experts in finance and technology, would assist in this process while maintaining appropriate discretion. The role of regional churches in succession planning was formally recognized, with new provisions ensuring representation from all continents. The Vatican's digital infrastructure saw complete modernization, implementing state-of-the-art encryption for sensitive communications. Regular security audits became mandatory, with results reported directly to a newly formed oversight committee comprising cardinals from all continents. The Vatican Library and Archives adopted advanced digital preservation techniques, ensuring both protection and accessibility of historical documents. As these reforms took shape, the Catholic Church demonstrated its resilience in adapting to modern challenges while preserving its essential spiritual mission. The crisis, while severe, led to meaningful changes in church governance and security protocols, setting new standards for religious institutions in the digital age. Yet through it all, the core mission of spiritual guidance and pastoral care remained unchanged, proving that even the world's oldest continuing institution could evolve while maintaining its fundamental purpose. The Vatican emerged stronger, more transparent, and better equipped to face the challenges of an increasingly digital world, while preserving the timeless traditions that have guided it for 2 millennia. As the Vatican adapts to this unprecedented crisis, One thing becomes clear. Even the world's oldest institution must evolve while keeping its sacred traditions intact. From financial reforms to digital security, from global responses to internal changes, the Catholic Church faces perhaps its greatest modern challenge. But what do you think? Does modernization strengthen or weaken the Church's spiritual mission? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more.